Let's stop now to consider how much time you really have in every class you teach, and think how important it is to make the most of every moment you have. This is something I have definitely caught some flack about, is discussing the actual training time. I was in a discussion group where someone I do respect talked vehemently about how hard and how often his people trained.
Okay,
And
sure.
yeah, and I said, hang on. You guys do a good job. They did a lot of live work. It was a lot of one-on-one, very little you go over in the corner and throw punches for the duration of class. They were good. They were throwing each other, punching at each other, evading it, like all of it. And I said, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Cut it in half. Because no matter
Okay.
what you do, if you think, hey, I'm working on evading punches and you're going to throw some at me, I'm going to throw some at you. Half of the time is me throwing them at you. And it's still training. I'm still working on punching, or like if you're in a grappling setup, like a judo class, or doing some of the shinen furori or takagi, where there's lots of throws. Now
Sure.
you both have to factor in some chunk of time is standing back up. And
Sure.
even if you do nothing to make that adversarial, you just let them stand right back up, which is arguably a bad idea. But if you say, okay, I'm going to throw you, you stand up, and then you throw me, and I'm going to stand up and not throw you, at best, 1/3 of that time is standing up.
Sure.
So I throw
So,
you 30% of the time, you throw me 30% of the time, and one of us is standing up 30% of the time.
yeah.
That it's unavoidable, and you can make good use of it. But right now, I want us to make sure we're discussing and thinking about how much time people are actually training and how to use that efficiently.
So what kind of pushback were you getting from that? I mean, it all sounds logical, but like
Oh, it's super
what?
logical. It's the emotional buy-in of saying that, hey, we're working on this thing. And
Yeah.
it was the singular proactive side of that thing. Like we're working on, ippon seoi nage. We're working this one traditional throw, getting really good at. We're spending an hour working on it.
Were they doing it in a fairly compliant way? Where there
Oh,
was one
sure.
person standing waiting to be thrown, or was it in a like a randori sparring situation?
I'm, I won't speak to how any particular class with somebody else's was being run. It was
Yeah,
probably
sure.
a decent amount of, you know, as all of us have fallen prey to, a decent amount of here, you throw me 10 times, I'll throw you 10 times
Right, right,
and just do
right.
it. I mean, yeah, I mean, getting into the throw is the important part of randori, but it just is what it is. That's not how any of us learned it initially, even though we should have.
So it
Um,
felt more like just drilling over and over again. And essentially, when that happens, I think what you're describing is okay, so now it's my turn to do Seonage and so I just go up to the person and do it 10 times or whatever the case may be. And now suddenly you have a student standing around, you're not being active. There's no aliveness, as we like to say sometimes. It's just
yeah,
kind of
yeah. The
just
other
standing there
person's
waiting,
getting nothing out of it for
getting,
50% or
yeah,
more of the time. Yeah, that's
right,
the
right.
worst part of that.
Yeah, and so,
It's
then you and I had recently been talking about a better use of our time with,
yeah,
through warm-ups and other practices.
getting through anything. Now you're in class with somebody. I did some really very basic math and realized you got 7 days a week and you got 24 hours in a day. Works out
Mhm.
to, I believe it's 168 hours per week. Easy enough. In any given week, there are students who will show up for every class you have all the time.
Mhm.
If you're doing 5, 6 days a week, they'll show up for 5, 6 days a week, two, three
For
hours,
sure.
4 hours at a time.
Yeah,
Um,
that was me.
they're going to be maniacs. That's fine. That's not the norm, right? I'd say we get your average person who you want to teach to. The rock stars who are going to get good without you, different topic. The people who are going to get it as long as they get a good class from you. They're going to maybe show up twice a week. I'll give that as a norm. And on a very generous, you've got a great class they can't stop coming to, is maybe they'll train for 2 whole hours.
Sure.
It's a long class. And even at that, and this is the thing, at that, if you did 2 hours twice a week, so 4 hours a week, that's 2% of their whole week. You have almost
Mhm. Mhm.
zero of their time.
Right.
And when I see that and I think, wait a minute, how could I possibly use this as efficiently as possible? Has to be your question. I mean, you got almost
Yes.
no impact.
Yeah, right, right. So, right, as a coach, we should probably look at that big picture and and realize out of this person's entire life, and maybe they've even said the words to you, I want to live this sort of lifestyle, this martial
Yeah.
arts lifestyle. You
Yeah.
still only have 2% of their life. The flip side of that is, their parent got the kids off to school, headed off to work, or maybe they're a student themselves. They have exams to study for, whatever the case may be. Everybody has super busy lives. A lot of people have crazy commutes. It might even be a passion of theirs to get to your school, during rush hour.
Yep.
And so for them, even though you could look at the course of their week or their entire life and say, unfortunately, all I have is 2% of their life. For them, this is a 4-hour chunk out of their day, even
It's
if they're going
phenomenal.
to a 2-hour
Yeah.
class, they need
Yeah.
to get there. They need to do a couple classes. They need to shower after, hopefully, and get home or whatever, and then just regroup and continue their life before they have to start the daily grind the next day. And so wouldn't it just be kind of insulting to just be wasting any of their time?
Yeah. Yeah. They came to you with all of this saying, hey, please get me as far as you can. I'm going to pay full attention and try as hard as I can. There are people who will practice on their own, trying to I think everyone who gets into martial arts is thinking about it in the back of their head throughout the day. Maybe they're kind of like walking through some of those movements in their spare time. That's great. It's fun. But that they're doing alone, you're just at home thinking about, oh, how did I grab that guy throwing? Is alone because they don't
Mhm.
have someone else to practice with there.
Yeah,
Or they're
yeah, yeah.
thinking
You
about
find
it while they're
people, buying
driving.
grappling dummies and watching, infinite YouTube videos,
Yeah,
because they
yeah,
don't have another person.
yeah. They don't have
Yeah,
somebody else. They come to
yeah.
a class with, I don't know how big your school might be, but with at least another person to train with, you.
You
And
should.
ideally, they'll have a lot of different body types to practice with. Maybe there's a whole group, the 10, 20 people in a class.
Mhm.
And imagine saying, hey, I've got 2% at the most of your average amount of time that you're coming together.
Yeah.
So, hey, everyone stand alone and practice something against an invisible person that you could be doing at home later.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of time at home to, do jumping jacks and run around in circles,
There is.
and
And you probably should.
yeah. Yeah, sure. General fitness wise, we are talking about using people's time wisely,
Yes.
and we do talk to school owners about these types of things. And one of the main things, is retention of students, and of course, growing enrollment. At least to the point of
Yeah.
capacity. I always grew up hearing, there's 9 out of 10 people who start martial arts quit, or after 9 months, I don't know, I didn't even remember what the numbers are. I've sort of stopped looking at them, but after 9 months, you only have, 80% retention, or maybe 80% quit. I don't know. Maybe, it doesn't, the point is, when I talk to people just anecdotally, just having a conversation, it's like, oh yeah, I did martial arts for a couple of years. I studied Taekwondo. I studied, Brazilian, whatever, the martial art that they tried. And I said, oh, why'd you stop? And they come up with probably some very valid reasons. But the one thing that we'll never know, this variable out there in the ether is all of the all of the things that were just the death by 1,000 cuts. They may validate, oh well, it just wasn't for me. They might say, well, what did if you had the ability to say, well, it just wasn't for me, and break it down for all the people who quit martial arts, I suspect some of them might come to the grips and say, wow, a lot of class was a waste of time. If they were being completely honest.
Yeah.
I'm only there for an hour, and they had me doing push-ups and sit-ups and jumping jacks and running around the academy floor. And okay, then we had a little bit of cool down, and then the coach got their act together, and then we did, some other drills, that were compliant sort of drills, and they gave us the whole rigmarole of about 1,000 repetitions and 10,000 repetitions or 10,000 hours or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. When actually, you could have spent the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of class working on skill-based training inside of, warm-ups, right? For
Yeah.
moment one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, there was a good way of looking at that informed how I changed my class design was when I had one mentor talk to me about the fact, like you mentioned, that a lot of people don't get past, and 9 months is a good average for many people who study martial arts. And
Mhm.
the point of view I was taught was maybe that average is unchangeable. Let's assume that the best classes in the world will still average 9-month participation. Now you back to that efficiency question, say, well, okay, what could I do for somebody in 9 months if I had to? And I knew that was my hard limit. Then
Mhm.
design a program, design a curriculum, design a program, design individual classes that make a 9-month program phenomenal. And then obviously, if they stick around longer, it's going to be even better because they'll have
Yeah, of
more
course.
exposure.
Right.
Um, Now, a flip side to this is somebody that I do trust a lot that their intentions are phenomenal. Uh, I've talked to somebody about this issue, and they were thinking, "Hey, I want to teach them skills they could practice alone." And so we'll do them alone, and then when they go home, they can do the same darn thing. Uh, Now, there's a side note of extrinsic feedback and intrinsic feedback, and how that
Mhm.
solo drill is going to be very different at home alone, uh,
Mhm.
despite your best intentions. But at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I know about me is I worked on things always imagining another person involved.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So even when I was practicing alone, the kind of walking through those thoughts in my head or physically moving at home alone, I was thinking about how this interacts with the other person that would imaginarily be there. Sort of a shadow boxing.
Yeah, maybe in a
So
different conversation, yeah, we can go back and talk again about the benefits of visualization, even without moving along. But yeah, for
yes,
sure, when I would do solo practice drills that were martial arts skill related, with the goal of skill acquisition, there was a ton
yes,
of visualization that went along with it. Sometimes I would rehearse those things in my mind before doing the physical exercises, rehearse them in my mind after doing the physical exercises. And sometimes, just be so obsessed about it that, those are the things that I would dream about at night, you
yeah.
know?
And we've done a review of some white papers on mental imagery in martial arts in particular, and how you can use them for skill development. We understand the skill now as being defined as that adaptability to,
Adaptability.
yeah, so if you're adaptive is what you're after, you can have that mental imagery of, hey, what if that person did this? What if that person did this? Or what if we were in that situation differently?
Right.
And all of that is still taking advantage in your mind of another person. So heck, if you've got that other person, for goodness sakes, make use of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise just, stay home and daydream, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And the joke I
Right.
make is that like, hey, the air at my house is pretty good. So
Mm.
the air in the dojo is not special. I don't have to come here to practice alone and breathe your air. I'll go home. I'll pet my dog sometimes, and I can
Yeah.
enjoy this
Yeah.
same thing at home without a bunch of other
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Right.
making
Exactly. But
noise.
I could be home at loved ones right now, and
Yes.
or I could be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Make use of that. So now you know you only have at most 2% of your average student's time. So it's imperative that you pack that time with every high quality moment you can. If you make every moment count, that makes your classes more productive. It makes your classes more fun. And if you do both of those things, it makes your classes more popular.